Hello everyone, this is your instructor Michael Anderson, and today I wanted to go over an example of the kind of homework you'll need to do this week for Chapter 2. When you look at the description of the homework, you'll see that it requires two portions. One of those will be to develop the logic for your program in pseudocode or flowchart, and then you'll also need to create a Unity project which allows you to program and demonstrate the functionality of your project. Remember that if you complete both the pseudocode and the flowchart, you'll be able to receive extra credit points. I'm just going to go over pseudocode for this example, but you'll have a pretty good idea of what you're going to be looking for. So the first thing that we do when we're developing the logic for a program is we look at what we actually have to do. So the description here says, imagine you are hired to develop a program for estimating the potential profits of a catering company working an event. The company serves three main dishes: a beef option, a chicken option, and a vegetarian option. The beef option costs $20 a serving, the chicken option costs $15 a serving, and the vegetarian option costs $10 a serving per party attendee. So these are the values that we'll be charging our customers. Now, how much do each of these meals cost us? Each meal costs the restaurant $5 for ingredients and $3 to pay the staff to cook and serve it. The company must also pay $500 to pay for the catering truck per event. Our task is to develop the logic for a program that allows a user to enter the number of meals and what type they are for a particular event. Then we must output the total revenue, cost, and the difference, and whether or not the company will make money on an event. So obviously our goal as this company is to create money, and if it's going to cost us more money for an event than we're going to make on it, it's not an event that we should do. So when I'm creating a program, the first thing that I like to do is identify the variables that we're going to be working with. This allows us to have a better idea of the scope of our project and basically what it is that we're going to be working with. So if we look here, we can see that we have three main dishes: a beef option, chicken option, and vegetarian option. And we also have their costs. So when we're using variables, it's important that we use descriptive names because it will help us keep track of what it is that we're working with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have the beef cost to customer, and we know that this equals 20. Next, we're going to have the chicken cost to customer, and that's going to be 15. And then we're going to have the vegetarian cost to customer, and that's going to equal 10. Now, you can see that we're getting the values directly from what we have here based on the knowledge that we have been given. You'll also notice that these are marked with dollar signs. Because we're using whole numbers here, it's not necessary for us to mark that these are dollars, because we'll just know that. Next, we need to know what's going to cost us. So we know that each meal is going to cost us $5. And then we also know that we need to pay our staff $3. Finally, we know that we have to pay $500 to pay for our truck. Alright, so you'll notice that Google Documents doesn't like that these are spelled funny. The reason that I put them this way is this is good etiquette to have when we're creating our code, is to use camel case. Now, I could make these 2's bigger as well, but I don't think that's necessary. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to figure out what we also get for our total revenue. And we don't know what that is yet, so we're going to leave it blank. And Google's going to correct me, but we don't need to do that. The cost, so what everything is going to cost for us. Thank you, Google, for helping. The difference between the two. And once again, it wants to do that for us. And then whether or not we're going to make money. Alright, we'll leave that blank. Alright, So we also need to figure out how many of each of these we're going to be serving. So let's put beef orders here, chicken orders here, and vegetarian orders here. We're also going to leave these blank because we don't know how many we're going to have. We're going to get that information from the user. So let's say that we're going to input our beef orders. I'm going to input our chicken orders, and we're going to input our vegetarian orders. Now, when you're using a standard development environment, you'll need to write some code in order to get these inputs. But because we're just doing pseudocode, we don't need to go that far. And when I go over what we're going to do inside of Unity, I'm going to make it very easy for you to modify those. So we don't need to worry too much about that. So then what we need to do is we need to figure out how much money we're going to get for each of these. So we're going to say that our revenue, let's do that first. So our revenue is going to be equal to, remember that this needs to be lowercase so that it's the same as this one. This is going to be our beef orders times our beef cost to customer plus our chicken orders times our chicken cost to customer plus our vegetarian orders times vegetarian cost to customer. So this is going to get us the total revenue that we get. So we need to figure out how many beef orders we're getting, and then we're going to multiply that by how much we're charging our customer for that. And then we're going to do the same thing for the chicken and the vegetarian orders. Next, we need to figure out what our costs are. So our cost is going to equal our beef orders plus our chicken orders plus our vegetarian orders plus our truck cost. Now you'll notice that I forgot to put in the meal cost and the staff cost. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put another plus in here, but I'm going to do a little bit different thing. We need to multiply the total of these two numbers by these three numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to use parentheses to add these together. And in fact, we're not going to use this plus sign. We're going to use a multiplication sign. And we're going to put these in parentheses first. Now the reason that we're putting these in parentheses first is because if we didn't, we would just do vegetarian orders times the meal cost. So what this will do is it will add our beef orders, chicken orders, and vegetarian orders together into one number, and it will take our meal cost and add it to our staff cost for one number, and then we'll multiply these two numbers together, and then finally we will add the truck cost. Next, we need to figure out what the difference is. I need that a big C again. So our difference is going to be what? Our difference is going to be our revenue minus our cost. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say we're going to do an if statement. So if our revenue is greater than our cost, then make money equals true. So let's go back through and read our description again. We're hired to develop a program for estimating the potential profits of a catering company for an event. The company serves 3 main dishes: beef option, chicken option, and vegetarian option. We have all of those. We have the costs. We have how much it costs for the ingredients, how much it costs to pay the staff, and then how much it costs for the truck. Then we need to develop the program logic that allows the user to enter the numbers, which is what we do here with the input. And then we need to output the revenue, the cost, and the difference, which is what we do down here. So this would be the basic logic for our program. So now, because we think that this will work, let's actually test it out. So you'll want to open up Unity, which will look something like this. And we're going to create a script to make sure that it actually works. So in order to do that, we're going to right-click on the Assets folder. We're going to create a C# script. We're going to call this example script. Generally, you'll want to use a more descriptive name than that, but we're just going to use this as an example for now. Then when you double click on it, it will open up Visual Studio. Visual Studio is what we use to program our code inside of Unity. So I'm going to delete this update function because we don't need that. And you'll learn more about what all of this stuff is as class goes along. Essentially, this class will contain our program and our methods will go in here. We're going to use the start method. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to transfer over our variables. So our variables are all of these values right here. So I can just select these, copy them, and paste them in. Now you'll notice that it doesn't work perfectly, and that's okay, because we have not gone over yet what type of variables these are. When we're programming, we need to be very specific about what type of values that we're using. So we're going to make this an integer because we know that this is going to be a whole number. We're going to make this an integer. We're going to make this an integer. Now another thing that we're going to do with these 3 values is, because we want these to be visible inside of the inspector, I'm going to make them public. Now generally you aren't going to make a value public unless you want the user to access it and it to be accessible in multiple places. We'll talk about this further along in the semester, but for right now you can make these values public because we're going to modify them from the inspector. Now these numbers are going to be floats because they're going to be decimal point numbers because they're going to involve money. Now we don't need to make these public because we're not going to be modifying these values at all. We can also make these into floats because once again they have to do with money. And then we also have the revenue, which is money, the cost, which is money, the difference, which is money, and make money is actually going to be a Boolean. So we're going to put all of these inside of our start method. Now start is a method which will automatically run once we engage the program. So this is a great place to put it. So now if we come back here, we know that we need to get the input for our beef, chicken, and vegetarian orders. We're going to cheat a little bit by making these public values that we're going to modify inside of the inspector. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we get back to testing it itself. But what we can do is we can take the logic of our program and we can paste it into here into our start. So we can see that revenue equals beef orders times beef cost to customer plus chicken orders times chicken cost to customer plus vegetarian orders times vegetarian cost to customer. Then we're going to get the cost, which is beef orders plus chicken orders plus vegetarian orders. Multiply that by the meal cost plus the staff cost and add the truck cost. Then we're going to to get the difference, and the difference is going to be the revenue minus the cost, and then we're going to have an if statement. Now, one thing we're going to do a little extra here is I'm going to put this into curly brackets. Now, because it's only one line for the if statement, we could not use these curly brackets, but this is a good practice to have because it contains everything inside of here. Now, the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to print out the values. It's very easy to do that inside of Unity. We use a special method called print, and we're going to say revenue and then we're going to add another plus cost. Actually, I'm going to put an equal sign here so that it's easier for us to read. Alright, so this is using a programming principle called concatenation, where we're taking strings and we are adding other values to the output string that we're going to create. So it's going to print out revenue, cost, difference, make money, and then in between those we're going to print out the values that we're getting from inside of our program. And the last thing that we need to do is we need to save it, and we can just click on this little disk icon. Then when you come back to Unity, you'll see that there's a little spinning thing down here in this bottom corner. That means that it's compiling the code. Now, if I were to run Unity right now, nothing would happen. So it's very important that we take our example script and we attach it to an object in the scene. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to go to Game Object, and I'm going to create an empty game object. It has no values in it at all, but what I'm going to do then is I'm going to click and drag my script onto the game object. Now you'll see here my public variables. If we go back here, you'll remember that I left beef orders, chicken orders, and vegetarian orders public so that we can modify them in the inspector, which is right here. So let's imagine that we're going to cater a large wedding event with, let's say, 200 people. So let's serve 50 orders of beef, 50 orders of chicken, and let's say that there are 100 vegetarians. I'm pretty sure that we're going to make money on this because there's so many people. But we'll have to see based on the cost of our meals to the consumer. So next, what we want to do to test to see if this works is we'll hit the play button. Now when we hit the play button, we'll see the output of our program down here. And you can click on this and it'll bring up a thing here. So we'll see that our total revenue from this order is $2,750. It costs us $2,100 in order to have our truck and prepare the cost of all of the food, which means that there is a $650 difference. So we're going to make money. So all of this work that we're putting into our catering company, we're only going to make $650, but it's still going to make money. Now, let's say that instead we didn't have any of these orders, but we had 200 vegetarian options. Are we going to make money now? Let's see. Now you'll see that our revenue is only $2,000 because we know that 10 times 200 is 2,000, and it's going to cost us $8 a plate in order to produce our vegetarian option, and then $500 for the truck. So we're actually going to lose money if our consumer only buys 200 vegetarian orders. And then we can modify these values if we want. So let's say that we do 200 beef and 0 other options. For this one, we're going to make $1,900 because the beef option costs the consumer much more than it costs us to produce. So that's essentially how you'll do it. Then what you'll need to do is you'll go to File, Save, And it's going to ask you to create a Unity scene. So we'll just call this scene. We'll save it. And then you're going to close Unity. You're going to close Visual Studio. Now, you'll need to submit this to me as well. So you'll go to Share. You'll copy this link, and then you would paste it into the text area of Blackboard. So I'll need this for one part of it, and then the other part I'll need is you'll need to locate where you saved your Unity project to. So in this case, I created an extra folder here. So you'll right click on it, you'll go to Send To, and you'll do a compressed zipped folder. A little window like this will pop up, and you'll have a little zip folder, and then you'll need to upload this to Blackboard as well. So that's pretty much all there is to it. If you have any questions for me, you can submit those on the question and answer discussion board. I will be going over some of the other assignments throughout the coming weeks, just for some examples of how you can work on the problems that you'll be given. But I'm probably not going to go as in-depth on the Unity portions of it and everything, because this will serve as the main example for how to do those things. So, once again, if you have any questions, you can post them on the discussion board. You can answer your fellow classmates. I'll answer you as well. We also have tutors that you can reach out to. And I just want you to be as successful as you can be in this class. So I look forward to getting to know you more, and to our project starting next week as well. So until then, I hope that you have a good night and good luck.